welcome to Forbidden Planet TV, and on today's extra special episode we are joined by Callie Hart to talk all things Quicksilver.
Hi guys.
Hi Callie, how's it going?
I'm doing great. I'm still riding the wave, the roller coaster that is this guy's face right now. But yeah, no, I've just been in the UK for the past couple of weeks doing a little impromptu tour, so it's been a wild one, but I'm super excited. Forbidden Planet is the finale for me, so you know, what a way to end on such a high note. Thank you for having me.
Oh, our absolute pleasure. We're obviously heading over to the store after this to sign many more copies, so but yeah, we're very excited that you could squeeze us in. So for anyone out there who doesn't know about Quicksilver, because it kind of just caught light, like it just went nuts.
A little bit.
Little bit. Where did the book kind of come from for you, and were you expecting what happened?
So it's been percolating in the back of my mind for the last couple of years, and I've been writing a lot of dark romance over the last decade, and I had a considerable dark romance readership. So I, had committed to a number of books for them, and in the back of my mind, this one's been playing out for a really long time, and I was just like, well, next year I'm gonna get to do the thing. Next year I'm gonna make time, and any writer will tell you that does not ever happen. You have to make things happen. If you want to carve out time for your passion project, then you absolutely have to be firm and do it. So I got to this time kind of last year, and I was like, okay, I'm feeling a little burnt out on the dark romance, and I really feel like I need this for me, for my own passion for writing. And the characters were just having temper tantrums at that point too. They were like, it's time. So I said, okay, fine, let's go. So I kind of knocked it out in November, December last year, and edited through January. And then just kind of sat on it because I didn't know really what I wanted to do, whether I wanted to try and go a traditional route or whether I wanted to just self-publish. And I also had incredible imposter syndrome because it's obviously my first romantasy, my first foray into fantasy, anything really. So I was just like, oh man, have I made a huge mistake? Are people going to read this? Are they going to think I'm crazy? So yeah, I did sit on it for a little while. I was being patient for the first time in my life while I tried to be organized and get my ducks in a row. And then it came out in June, and it didn't do well in June, and I was like, oh no, I'm never going to reach my readership. This new readership, is so huge, but there's some fantastic books obviously in the genre, and just trying to reach romantasy readers after being a dark romance writer for so long was really quite hard. And it was TikTok in the end. Obviously, BookTok is a powerful beast, and I reached out to some phenomenal BookTokers and said, hey, I've written this thing. Would you be interested in reading it? Do you think it's your cup of tea? And about 15 of them got back to me and said, heck yeah, that sounds great. That sounds like right up my street. And they immediately were just posting about it, and it just went, into the outer stratosphere a little bit, and it was definitely a pinch me moment. I did feel like I woke up and I just suddenly started to see all of these things coming up on TikTok, and it was crazy, really, really crazy. And it's just gotten even more, wild as I've gone on. So very grateful for it all. Yeah,
the BookTok phenomenon, it's a beast that cannot be tamed.
I agree,
but it's always so interesting, from my perspective as a buyer, because you kind of, obviously buying months in advance and stuff, but sometimes things like this just suddenly kind of come out of nowhere, and you're just like, hell, this sounds good.
Yeah, thank you.
So yeah, thank you for so you mentioned before about obviously writing kind of in the dark romance sphere beforehand. Do you feel you had to kind of change anything up for Quicksilver?
Not really, no. I mean, there are still very, dark romance elements in this story, and Kingfisher is very much, the kind of character that I like to write. He's a broken guy who has kind of complex layers going on, lots of secrets, he has a little bit of a redemption arc. So there were a lot of similarities between, you know, the dark romance content that I was writing and this particular story. Obviously this with Quicksilver, I'm getting to do so much more world building and like being super creative, which was something I was really, really craving. I love writing dark romance, but I've always I'm just always leaning towards like dark academia and trying to have like really fun, like fantastical, like, you know, gothic vibes in my books. So it was just so fun to be able to, you know, create that in this story and really flesh out the world building, and the different locations in this book are really characters within themselves as well, which I just absolutely loved getting to do, which I had been missing from my other content. So yeah.
You definitely as well the kind of dark academia kind of vibes, because obviously you have the Fey library and stuff, which it's I can like see it when I close my eyes. Like you're just like, I get all those kind of like books and like almost like you know, Shakespeare and Co, the bookstore in Paris. You know, the ladders.
Yeah.
I can just kind of imagine that on some like huge scale.
It's my like dream, you know, like every author's dream. Like we just want really nice libraries, you know. And I have like these fantasies of having a really big, you know, a hearth and a really comfy chair and a roof with rain kind of hammering on it and stuff like that. So I'm just like, you know, deep in my feels when I'm writing those scenes, because I'm like, oh, that'd be so cozy. That would be so nice.
Oh my god.
But yeah, you've got to have a good library in a fantasy. I feel like it's almost a prerequisite. So
yeah, no, definitely. We talk about obviously hot guys all day, but the library is also
that's what we're really talking about. Yeah.
So you kind of hinted before, but what came first? Was it the characters or the world? Because I kind of feel as if, I don't know, certain characters
maybe. Yeah, no, it was definitely Kingfisher that came first, and Saeris as well. He was my primary, you know, character when he came in. I was like, okay, I had certain scenes that kept playing out in my head with him, and they're actually in book 2, which is really fun. You know, I assumed myself that they were going to be a book 1 kind of scene, but you know, as I was writing book 1, I was like, okay, we're not there yet. Like, this is going to definitely be a later part of the story. But you know, I'd be at the grocery store, or you know, I'd wake up in the middle of the night, like, you know, like I've got to write this down before I forget. So like, scenes with him were really like at the forefront of my mind, and Saeris too. You know, their dynamic obviously, and their romance as well, like, was such a huge, you know, theme running through my head all of the time. And yeah, the world and the story kind of blossomed around them, really. I knew that they were going to come from very, very different places. I knew they were going to be very different people, and that was something I really wanted reflected in their surroundings as well. It was kind of like a mirror of who they were as well. So yeah, like getting to create 2 separate, really different realms was so much fun. And yes, it was a lot to kind of like boom, like introduce at the beginning of book 1, and now, you know, I'm really getting to explore like many different places in book 2, which is really, really fun.
Oh, you keep hinting at that book too as well. I also have to say about I just loved the writing style, because it's a weird mix between being very kind of fast paced and like, I've said to a few people when I was reading this that you read 50 pages and you don't even realise you've read 50 pages, but your like use of kind of words is very lyrical, kind of very ornate in a way. Like, is that something you kind of honed over your career? Is it?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you know, there's a fine line. When I first started writing, you know, I was very, you know, flowery. And you know, I look back on it now and I'm like, oof, yeah, you know, there's a limit to how you know, verbose you can be in a story, especially like this, when you're trying to cover so much ground. But it is like, you know, the goal is to kind of communicate things telepathically with the reader. And when you go overboard with like being too, you know, fancy and poetic, then it's really jarring and pulls people out. So, you know, I have over the last 12-14 years really tried to like be as concise and compact and economical as I can, and then have like, trying to have like a moment of like something beautiful, like, but really contracted and compressed, like slipped in so people be like, oh, that's cool, in amongst, just not even having to think about what they're reading, and they're just kind of in the story. So yeah, that was another part of like the writing process for me with this book. What tense I was going to write, and first person is definitely my preferred kind of POV style as well. Pardon me. And yes, because I want, the reader to feel like they're in the character's shoes. But past tense hasn't been something that I've written in a long time. It's been first person present tense, which is a very immediate writing style, reading style, obviously. But with something like fantasy, romantasy, it doesn't, past tense lends itself so much better to like description and world building and things like that. So it was a new foray into that for me. I haven't written in past tense in like 10 years, so I was just like, oh, okay, this is like, I have to really stretch my legs here again and figure out how to get back into this writing style. But it was so much fun. I loved it. I absolutely loved it.
So we have to consider, I always love asking authors about this, battle scenes versus sex scenes. What's the hardest to write, would you say? And is there a similarity between the two?
Yeah, absolutely. Fighting and yeah. No, there is, because in both scenes there's a lot going on. There's a lot of action and movement, and a lot of things like, pieces unfold. Like, yeah, it's very similar, I guess. I haven't even thought about it in that way, but you're right, it is. I love writing like fight scenes, battle scenes are so much fun for me. Like, I just really have this like cinematic vision of what's happening as things like that unfold. And I'm a huge Lord of the Rings fan, so reading those fight scenes, those battle scenes, those epic, beautiful battle scenes, I always am aspiring to hit that level of like, just that epic like feeling that will give you goosebumps kind of thing. And then obviously writing a sex scene is very different. And I've written so many sex scenes now. You do really feel like you've been through the Kama Sutra, and you're like, how am I gonna make this different? How am I gonna, like, what are they gonna get up to this time? But I'm always I try to be very careful with the sexual content that I write. I don't just want it to be there for gratuity's sake or to be salacious. I want it to serve a purpose. I want there to be a real deepening of a connection between characters. I don't necessarily just want it to be tawdry or like there for shock value. So I'm always striving to have really like deep, intense emotion in those scenes as well. So yeah, I mean, those scenes take me the longest to write because I really want to get them right. But yeah, it's always, you have your moments. And I was listening to the audiobook recently. And the narrators did such a phenomenal job, but probably too good a job because I don't normally listen to the sex scenes because I get silly and I'm like, ooh, and I get all giggly and I don't want to listen anymore because I'm like, I wrote that. But the narrators did such a good job of performing their roles. It really was a performance with this audiobook that I was totally swept away with it. And I was totally like, oh my goodness. Anthony's just such a, like, he's delivered Quicksilver, like Kingfisher's lines so well that I'm just like, holy hell, I don't know. Okay. But yeah, I'm always gonna love writing a fight scene more than anything because I just love like that the stirring like speech the characters get to give just gives me goosebumps every time, and it's like my favorite moment in any book or movie. That's the one that's gonna get me like really emotional and like tearing up. Just the camaraderie and like the brotherhood and like we're in this together is so like special to me. I love it.
And definitely kind of, you mentioned the cinematic kind of nature of the action scenes, just thinking obviously very early on in the book, so this isn't too spoilery for anyone out there who hasn't read it yet, but the whole scene with pinching the kind of the gauntlet from the guard and escaping the guard, and you just, it kind of ramps up really quickly. Like it's just
Yes.
like, oh no, okay, she's not getting out of this. So yeah, it's just phenomenal to kind of see those really fast-paced, very fun.
And I wanted to open on a really, it's always the goal to introduce the character and really like show who they are immediately, and that really was the goal with that scene in Saeris, like what she's willing to do to protect her family, the lengths that she'll go to, the fact that she can fight, the fact that she's sassy and back talking and willing to take on like a bunch of like guys and be totally out of her depth and still like go for it, and show that she's like so fiercely protective of her brother. And so there was a lot going on in that first chapter, and I was like, I have to introduce a whole new world. I have to introduce this character. I have to introduce like the political system, the fact that they're oppressed, the fact that it's hot as hell and no one has any water. So like it was just, it really was like, I spent a long time trying to finesse that chapter, and I even now I go back and I'm like, man, I wish I'd done this. I wish I'd done this. But getting to write the first chapter of a book is my absolute favorite part, because like it's a gamified, I suppose, in my brain, and I'm like, I've got to hit these beats and accomplish these things, but in a way that the reader isn't realizing that that's what's happening. So super fun, and you get to have like a bit of a fight scene straight out of the gate.
Yeah, I mean that's that's always good. So quite interesting. I'm like currently playing for the first time BG3. I like obviously everyone was playing it last year. And Fisher definitely kind of gives me some Astarion vibes. Just the whole kind of like that he knows a lot. Obviously, Astarion's kind of a little bit more kind of campy.
Yeah.
But would you say there's anyone who's kind of inspired Fisher for you?
I mean, when I was writing it, I'm a huge Timothée Chalamet fan, and I'm a huge Adam Driver fan. So I'd kind of like merged Kylo Ren and Paul Atreides in my mind, and like I don't know, created this monster in my mind. But yeah, I haven't played Baldur's Gate 3, but I really want to, because everyone keeps talking about how fun Astarion is.
Yeah, oh my god.
And I bought a PlayStation 5 specifically to play this game, and I bought the game, and my boyfriend, we got as far as like building our characters, and then life just got crazy. So one of the things I'm gonna do as soon as I get home is like completely rot on my couch and play Baldur's Gate 3. So maybe I'll like go into it and be like, oh, that is so Kingfisher. I'm looking forward to it. I'm so excited.
It's very, very pretty. I normally play like JRPGs, so I play all the Final Fantasies and stuff. And this is kind of a slightly different, I suppose, kind of more tactical, but the world building is exceptional, and just as you kind of discover different places and you stumble across different, like you feel like these random characters have just like come out of nowhere, and you feel like you're stumbling into someone's conversation.
I love that.
It's I think based on your amazing book, I think
I've literally never played a video game before, but it's something that I really want to get into. Like, I mean, I've played like silly little Pac-Man stuff, like, and coin ups and whatever, but I'm fascinated by the idea of like the world building that goes into like these huge games that just go on, and the gameplay is like 200 plus hours and stuff. It's crazy the amount of work that goes into it. I think it would be really fun to write a game, like, or be a writer in a video game. I think that would be super exciting, because it is such a choose your own adventure, and there are so many different branches and like avenues that you can go down. That reminds me, of those like when we were at primary school and we got those like choose your own adventure books,
fantasy books.
I love that.
Cool.
Yeah, I think that would be a fun adventure for me as a writer. I would love to do something like that.
They're very cool. It's my partner's a video game writer.
Really?
So, I don't know how he does it, because it's a whole other. He writes books as well. I think it's kind of, you almost kind of have to channel up
different side of your brain. He loves it though.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Oh man, that's exciting.
So
I want to give it a shot.
You hear some. I suppose he hears some of my weird meetings as well. So we probably there's some very weird conversations that go on. And just thinking about the kind of the gaming thing, just thinking the character of like the Undying Queen. That is just something that's kind of so evocative, almost very kind of dark soulsy. So, your evil characters. So, for example, the
there's
Undying
a lot
Queen,
of them.
there is a few of them.
Yeah.
How fun were they to write? And do you end up in a weird way? I don't know, not rooting for them as such, but at least rooting for them to be as bad as they possibly can be.
I love an anti-hero, but these guys aren't. Well, okay. Where to begin? They're very different, obviously. There are 3 of them, which is a lot. That's a lot going on the page. But Madra has a really interesting story that it is unfolding in book 2 and will come to a climax, as and you'll find out her story and all of the reason why she's an Undying Queen and all of that good stuff. And there is a little element of, she has a little bit of an anti-hero story, but I do love just making them rotten and bad. And Belacon's just the worst. He's like a horrible creature, and he has no redeeming qualities, and he's just vile. And I love playing that off against his daughter Evelyn is like this just sunshine and light, and like not a bad bone in her body, and having these like characters who really are like archetypally like good, bad, but then having like a little element and a little spark. I love morally grey characters, obviously, but it's so much fun writing a character who you think is one thing, and then suddenly you're introduced to this idea, and you discover another element about them, and you're like, okay, well maybe how would I have reacted in that situation? Like Jaime Lannister is such a classic like character where he's just absolutely abhorrent. He pushes a child out of a window, he's having sex with his sister. But then by the end of the series, you're like, I like Jaime. I'm rooting for Jaime. I don't want him to die.
To get a villain right, you kind of you need to hate them.
Yeah.
But you then potentially when you get that kind of reveal. So obviously book 2, when you start kind of learning more about why they became evil.
Yeah, it's good fun to write as well, because complex characters. I mean, I really wanted the side characters in this book to have, purpose and not just be a vehicle of moving the story in a specific direction to get the main characters to a certain end game. I wanted, them to have real depth, because I want to write side character stories and things like that, and the world is so huge. So I just love fleshing the characters out and giving them so many different layers and their motivations and what's their end goal and all of those things. It's like, having pages and pages of character profiles and figuring out how their trauma and all of their past experiences affect how they react in different situations. And it's just it's like a game in my mind, and I just love it. It's so much fun.
So coming towards the end of our interview today, so what is next on your list of many things to do?
So I'm nearly finished book 2. I will be done by the end of the year, which is really exciting. And then obviously we then enter edits and things like that, but I'm going to immediately jump into book 3. I really want to be straight into the continuation of the story, because I find it hard to kind of step back between. It's hard to get going again, when you've got momentum. I like being able to move forward, and I think since this is airing in 2 weeks' time, I can say confidently that I'll be working on the movie as well, which is really cool. We have, that news is coming out very soon, so being able to play a part in that as well is very, very exciting. Helping to EP that, and being on set next year and things like that, and getting to share that with readers is going to be a really fun experience. but then I'm going to take a break. I'm going to write a standalone or something. I'm going to write maybe some sci-fi or some fantasy. And then hopefully I'll be back with side character books. Fingers crossed.
Oh, I love it's just a collection of like short stories with like side character like backstories and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, more of that needs to happen.
I agree.
So,
I agree.
Yeah, definitely. And to finish, what are you currently reading, watching? We already discussed Baldur's Gate 3, so that's what you'll be.
Yeah. Absolutely. I am so excited for that. I'm excited to just go home, put pajamas on, read a book, play that, and just, you know, enjoy Christmas and breathe and decompress. But yeah, when I'm going to be reading, what am I reading right now? Right now, I have just started, I'm about to start Mistborn, because I did it wrong. I started with the Stormlight Archive first. But I don't know, maybe the timing's bad for Mistborn, because Brandon Sanderson's newest book comes out in that series next week. So maybe I'll rethink that then, and I'll get back to Kaladin. But I don't know. What was the first part?
If you're watching anything, either kind of TV or any films you're looking forward to.
Yes, I am with back with the Atreides and the Harkonnens in Dune right now in the new show. I can't remember the name of the TV show. Prophecy?
Yes.
Prophecy.
Yeah.
It's so good. I've only watched the first episode, but it's so nice seeing Travis Fimmel in a role again. Like, I haven't seen him on TV for a while. So, and you know, I love that whole series. So yeah, excited about that. I'm trying to think what's coming next year. Oh, I'm watching Silo as well, season 2.
Yes.
I was waiting for that. Yeah. So good, so good. I love that book series. It's one of my absolute favorites. So highly recommend that. But yeah, other than that, I'm just looking forward to relaxing and cuddling my dog. Yay. I miss him. We've been away for a couple of weeks, so I'm excited to get back and giving him a big squeeze.
Well, hopefully, obviously, safe travels soon, and before you go, we've still got more to say, and another event. But yeah, thank you, Callie, so much for joining us today. And yeah, for everyone out there, we'll have some signed copies available at all of our stores, including our Bristol store, which should be open by the time this goes live, and available on our website. And we also ship worldwide, so hey, look into that. But we shall see you next time. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
If you're enjoying watching Forbidden Planet TV and you're enjoying watching us talk to the world's most interesting and accomplished filmmakers, authors, artists, musicians, creators, subscribe right here. See you soon.